My brother proposed with our grandmother's ring, the one she'd promised to me. When I asked about it, my mom said, "You're not even engaged. Don't be petty." I smiled, said nothing, and checked the safety deposit box records. The ring was still in my name. One call later, it was gone from her finger. Just like my bank account, which they drained for $6,000. That's when the panic started. The first thing you need to understand is that the ring on her finger was mine. Not some sentimental trinket, not a shared family keepsake. A real ring with real value and real history. And legally, it belonged to me. My grandmother made that crystal clear before she died. She didn't trust anyone else to hold on to it, especially not my mom. The ring was in my name, in my possession, locked in a bank safety deposit box for a full year after her funeral. So when my brother Kevin dropped to one knee in the middle of our family's backyard barbecue and pulled out that ring, my ring, I thought I was hallucinating. The worst part? Nobody even looked at me. Not a single glance. Kevin beamed like a show pony, Megan cried, my mom started clapping before he even finished asking, and my dad opened a bottle of champagne he only brings out for holidays and career promotions. Meanwhile, I was standing 5 feet away holding a paper plate of ribs, watching my inheritance slide onto Megan's perfectly manicured finger. Later, I asked my mom about it quietly, just the two of us in the kitchen. She didn't hesitate. "You're not even engaged. Don't be petty." I smiled, that kind of smile where your jaw tightens first. I said, "Okay," and left. I didn't argue. Didn't throw a fit, didn't cause a scene. Instead, I drove straight to the bank the next morning. I still remember the hum of the fluorescent lights in that tiny vault room. The lock clicked open, and there it was, the paperwork. Certificate of ownership, insurance forms, a notarized letter from my grandmother's lawyer dated just 3 days before she passed. Every single document listed me as the legal owner of the ring. It hadn't been transferred. It hadn't been gifted to Kevin. And most importantly, there was no way he had gotten that ring legally. So how did he get it? Only one explanation. My mother had access to the deposit box. She must have taken the ring without telling me. Or more likely, she just didn't think I'd notice, or care, or fight back. They were wrong. I called my lawyer. We went over everything. His first question was whether I had proof of ownership. I had more than that. I had a paper trail that could bury them. Out of pure curiosity, I checked something else while we were preparing the case, my credit card statements. Kevin had used my card a couple months ago, temporarily, when he and Megan were moving into their new place and were waiting on his bank to transfer funds. He'd asked nicely. I'd agreed. Big mistake. $6,000. That's how much he and Megan had spent, all while I was working double shifts trying to stay afloat during a rough patch at my job. Flights to Miami, a new dining set, a couch, clothes, even the catering for their engagement party, all charged to me. No one had said a word. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft, disrespect, and entitlement. 2 weeks later, Kevin called me. I let it go to voicemail. "Hey, something weird happened. Megan's ring is missing. Did you hear anything about that? Mom said maybe you saw it." I didn't call him back. I didn't need to, because I'd already taken it back legally. And that was just the beginning. After the ring was returned to me and Kevin's panicked voicemail went unanswered, I knew the calm wouldn't last. Sure enough, 2 days later my phone lit up with my mom's name. She skipped right past any kind of hello. "Why would you do this to your brother?" Not a question, an accusation. Like I had stolen something, not reclaimed what was already mine. I told her calmly that the ring was legally mine and always had been. That Grandma gave it to me, that I had the documents, the proof, and the right. I didn't expect her to apologize, but I thought maybe, she'd at least try to understand. "You're punishing him for being happy." There it was. Not just a refusal to acknowledge what had happened, but a complete rewrite of the story. In her eyes, Kevin deserved happiness no matter the cost. Even if that cost was lying, stealing, and betrayal. Even if it meant screwing over her other son in the process. I hung up before she could say anything else. 3 days later, I filed a formal demand for the $6,000 Kevin and Megan had charged to my credit card. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about the principle. They had crossed every line, and I wasn't going to let them keep walking. That same night, my parents called, both of them on speaker. I sat on my couch and listened as they tried to convince me to drop everything. He's your brother. He was under pressure. You know how expensive starting out is. You could afford it. They tried to make me feel selfish, like I was somehow the problem for not funding Kevin's life, for not giving up what was mine so he could play house with a girl he'd been dating for 2 years and cheating on for 1. I told them they had 2 weeks to make this right before I took it to court. They didn't believe me, so I filed. What followed was 3 months of bitterness wrapped in legal formalities. Court dates, emails from lawyers, awkward silences at family gatherings I didn't attend. My mom tried calling again, this time more desperate than angry. She said things like, "We're a family," and "You're tearing us apart," like this wasn't entirely of their own making. They assumed they'd win, that a judge wouldn't take it seriously, that the ring was just sentimental and I'd look petty trying to claim it in court. But Grandma wasn't stupid. She had everything documented: the will, the insurance, the letters she wrote with her shaky handwriting about why she chose me and not Kevin. It all held up in court. The judge ruled in my favor. The ring was returned to me, officially and legally. Megan had already stopped wearing it weeks before. According to her friend who DM'd me out of nowhere, she didn't even want it anymore after finding out how they got it. Said it felt cursed. Kevin didn't show up to the final hearing. He couldn't. His apartment was already gone by then. Turns out he wasn't just relying on my card. He was behind on rent too. The landlords gave him 2 weeks to vacate. Megan left the week before that. No ring, no fiancé, no apartment. He moved back in with my parents. The silence after that ruling was eerie. Not a word from my mom, not a message from my dad. I figured they were licking their wounds, but I knew Kevin wasn't going to take the hit quietly. 2 weeks after the court decision, I walked out of my apartment building at 6:30 in the morning and found my car destroyed. Windshield cracked, front bumper hanging, paint scratched up like someone had taken a key to it for 20 minutes straight. The baseball bat was left under the car, just in case I didn't get the message. One of the neighbors said they heard noise around 2 a.m. but didn't see who it was. Another said they saw someone in a hoodie, but the cameras facing the street didn't catch the angle. The police came, took the report, asked a few questions, and left. I knew it was Kevin. No one else had that kind of rage toward me, but I couldn't prove it. And that's when I understood something important: they weren't going to stop. Not until I either gave in or walked away entirely. So I chose the third option. I'd wait. Not out of fear, not out of weakness. I was done playing by their rules. I knew karma was real, and I knew it was coming. By that point, I'd written off the idea of any kind of reconciliation. There wasn't going to be a family meeting or a tearful apology. My car had been totaled, my trust was gone, and no one from that house even sent me a text to pretend they cared. I didn't fix the car, I replaced it. Paid for it outright. It was my way of saying, "You didn't win." 2 weeks later, karma finally showed up. I got the call from my cousin Jordan. I don't even remember what he said at first, just that it started with, "You're not going to believe this." Apparently, Kevin had taken my dad's car out for a drive. Dad's Lexus, baby for a decade, and wrapped it around a utility pole 2 blocks from their house. It was 3 a.m., no passengers, no pedestrians, but the car was wrecked. Front end crushed, airbags deployed, the whole thing done for. Kevin had a minor concussion, a fractured wrist, and some bruised ribs. Could have been worse. I'm not sure he deserved worse, but I definitely didn't lose sleep over it. A day later, I got a message from my mom, the first one since the court case. "Kevin's in the hospital. Dad's car is gone. We're trying to figure out expenses." Then another right after. "Can you help?" I didn't even reply. There's a specific kind of silence that follows when a family finally realizes you're done being their backup plan. No arguments, no shouting, just nothing. And it was the best nothing I'd ever felt. A week passed. I got another message, this time from someone I definitely didn't expect, Megan. At first I thought it was a mistake, or a prank, or maybe a drunk text. But it wasn't. She asked if we could talk, said she wanted to clear the air. I agreed, mostly out of morbid curiosity. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods. She looked different, less polished, more real. She didn't bother with small talk. "I always liked you more." That's how she started. She said she never knew about the ring situation until after the proposal, that she found out the night Kevin came home ranting about lawyers and betrayal. When she asked where the ring really came from, he got defensive and blamed me for everything falling apart. She said she didn't believe him. And then she said something that made me nearly choke on my coffee. "I've had feelings for you since last year. I just didn't know what to do with them." I stared at her. Half of me was still expecting Ashton Kutcher to jump out and yell that I was being punked, but she was serious. I didn't give her an answer. I just nodded and said I needed time to think. And I meant it. I wasn't looking to start some twisted love triangle, especially not with someone who'd been engaged to my brother 2 months ago. But news travels fast, and somehow, probably from one of her friends who still talked to Kevin, the rumor got back to him. 3 days later, Megan showed up at my apartment again. Her face was pale, her voice shaking. "He's trying to get back with me. Not because he wants me, because you didn't say no." I didn't respond right away. I just opened the door wider and let her in. That's when it hit me, Kevin wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And neither was I. The fact that Megan showed up again didn't shock me. What shocked me was how scared she looked. Not emotional, not sad, scared, like she'd seen something she couldn't unsee. She sat on my couch, barely touching the tea I gave her, and said Kevin had been blowing up her phone since he found out she came to see me. Texts, calls, even a late-night appearance outside her apartment. She didn't let him in. He stayed in his car for 20 minutes, then peeled off. "He thinks I'm doing this to hurt him," she said. She wasn't. That was the craziest part. She wasn't trying to make a scene or create drama. She just wanted out of that mess and apparently had feelings she couldn't shake. I didn't trust it yet. How could I? But I also wasn't dumb. Kevin wasn't going to take this like an adult. 2 days after that, it happened. Kevin posted a picture of him and Megan on Instagram. The caption was a passive-aggressive masterpiece. "Back where we belong. Some things don't need fixing." She called me that night furious. Said she hadn't spoken to him in a week, that she had no idea he'd taken the photo. It was from months ago. She asked him to take it down. He blocked her. It was his move, not to get her back, but to spite me. I didn't reply. I didn't post. I didn't even engage. But something started shifting. Our extended family, the ones who'd kept their distance during the lawsuit, suddenly had a lot to say. A few aunts reached out to me. One even apologized for believing my mom's side of the story. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years were sending messages saying I did the right thing. Apparently, Kevin's spiral wasn't exactly private. Word had gotten around about the car crash, the court loss, the financial mess, and now this petty attempt at dragging Megan back. My parents stayed silent. I figured they were nursing their own bruised pride after having to pay for the totaled Lexus. Insurance had denied the claim. DUI wasn't involved, but reckless driving at 3 a.m. with no reason for being out. They got nothing. Out of pocket hard. It didn't take long for their financial pressure to land back where it always did, at my front door. Another message from Mom. "We're falling behind. I know things have been tense, but maybe we could talk." Translation: "Can you give us money again?" This time I didn't ignore her. I replied, "I'm not your emergency fund. Try Kevin." The read receipt popped up. She didn't reply. Then a week later, the real kicker hit. I ran into my cousin Taylor at a bookstore. She said something that almost made me laugh out loud. "You know Kevin's telling people he's back with Megan because you tried to date her and she rejected you?" Apparently he was spreading it around the family, telling people I'd been waiting in the wings, that Megan had let me down easy, and that they were working things out. I didn't say a word, just nodded and moved on. But inside, I was already planning my next move. Kevin wanted to play games. He didn't know I was just getting started. After I found out about the lies Kevin was spreading, I stopped pretending anything in this family could be salvaged. The only difference now was I wasn't playing defense anymore. Megan cut all contact with him after the Instagram stunt. She deleted her account, changed her number. She told me she needed space, and I respected that. I didn't chase her. She was dealing with the kind of emotional shrapnel only someone like Kevin could leave behind. Charm, guilt, gaslighting, repeat. Meanwhile, I started getting petty texts from my dad. They were vague and passive-aggressive questions about whether I'd talked to Megan recently, or how. Family feuds don't end well for anyone. I ignored every one of them. Then my lease came up for renewal, and I decided not to stay. I'd been in the same apartment for 5 years. It was fine, safe, quiet, but dull. And I needed a change. So I found a condo on the other side of town. Brighter, bigger, with actual sunlight and a second bedroom I didn't need but wanted anyway. The day I moved in, I got a knock on the door from someone I hadn't seen in person since the court case. My dad. He stood there like it was completely normal, holding a paper bag with 2 fast food burgers inside. We should talk. I let him sit at the kitchen counter. He didn't eat the burger, just picked at the edge of the wrapper like it might explode. He told me Kevin was spiraling, drinking more, isolating, saying things he shouldn't say. Mom was stressed, Dad was exhausted, the house was tense. And then came the pitch. You've always been more responsible. Maybe you could help steer him back. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, just listening. Then he said something that still makes my skin crawl. We made a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't have given him the ring. But he had someone. You didn't. Like that made it okay. I didn't kick him out. I didn't yell. I just told him the truth. This isn't about a ring anymore. It's about all the times I was the backup plan, the ATM, the afterthought. That part's done. He nodded like he understood, but I knew he didn't. 2 days later, Kevin showed up at my building, not at my door, but downstairs, leaning on a parking meter, staring up at the windows like he was waiting for a sign. My neighbor called to say some guy was loitering near the garage entrance. I looked out and saw him pacing, wearing that same old varsity jacket he hadn't taken off since college. He looked lost, not angry, not smug, just tired. I didn't go down. Instead, I called the building manager and had a note put on his car. Trespassing will be reported to the police. He didn't come back. But the final blow came 2 weeks later. Megan texted, just a short message. Can I stop by? I need to talk to you in person. She came by that night. No drama, no tension. She just sat on my couch and took a deep breath. I never told him how I felt about you because I was afraid he'd lose it. But I can't pretend anymore. I didn't interrupt. I let her say what she needed to. I like you? I think I've liked you since that family trip to Tahoe 2 years ago. But I buried it because you were the wrong brother. She was wrong. I wasn't the wrong brother. I was the one they buried so the other one could shine. We sat in silence for a while. Nothing romantic, just real, honest. Later that night, I found out Kevin had seen us together. Somehow he knew, whether it was a neighbor, a relative, or just dumb luck, he found out Megan had been at my place again. And that night, he went out drunk, angry, furious. He didn't make it far. Lost control of a borrowed car, not my dad's this time, but his friend's. Slid off the road, hit a signpost. Not life-threatening, but enough to land him in the hospital again. My mom called, not to tell me he was okay, not to apologize. She just said, I hope you're happy. I hung up. And I finally was. After the accident, everything collapsed faster than I expected. Kevin walked away with a broken leg, a few stitches, and what the doctors called minor internal bruising. But whatever pride he had left didn't survive. He wasn't just physically broken, he was unraveling. He stopped posting on social media, stopped responding to most people, just disappeared into my parents' house like a ghost. The whispers in the family grew louder. Aunts who used to defend him now told each other behind closed doors that Kevin needed help. Not support, help. Real help. Therapy, distance, consequences. My mom didn't see it that way. She called again 3 days after the crash, left a voicemail this time. He's in pain, Alex. And you've been cruel. That was it. No mention of the $6,000. No mention of the ring. No mention of the car he destroyed, or the lies, or the credit card fraud. Just me, the villain. Again. I didn't call back. And then came the moment that none of us saw coming. Megan showed up at a family gathering. Uninvited. It was a barbecue at my cousin's place. I wasn't there. I hadn't been to one of those since before the court case, but I heard all about it afterward. She walked in like she belonged there, said hi to everyone, helped herself to a soda. My mom went pale. My dad apparently left the backyard entirely. Kevin tried to talk to her. She walked past him without a word. My cousin Taylor told me later. It was like she came to show them she wasn't afraid of any of them. After that, the calls stopped. The texts ended. Even the second-hand drama dried up. It was like they all realized I wasn't coming back, that I wasn't going to be the one who forgave and forgot, that I wasn't part of that unit anymore. Megan and I kept talking. We took it slow, no labels, no pressure. She stayed in her apartment, I stayed in mine. We saw each other a couple times a week. Went for walks, ate cheap tacos, laughed. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was just two people who had made it through the wreckage. A month later, Kevin moved out of my parents' house. Rumor was he went to stay with a friend in another city. No one said goodbye. No one asked him to stay. And me? I kept the ring. It's still in the safe, same box, same papers, still waiting for someone who reminds me of Grandma. Kind, sharp, unwilling to let anyone walk all over them. I don't know if that person is Megan. Maybe, maybe not. But I know one thing, the next time I open that safe, it'll be on my terms. And no one, not Kevin, not my parents, not anyone, will ever take that from me again. The next real update came 4 months later. Not through drama, not through some explosive family scandal, just a quiet moment that meant more than I expected. Megan and I were sitting at a small restaurant downtown, the kind that's always just dark enough inside to make you forget it's the middle of the afternoon. We were sharing dessert, and somewhere between the coffee and the check she said it. So are we officially serious now? I didn't even need to think about it. We've been serious. We just hadn't said it out loud. I nodded. She smiled. That was it. No fireworks, no big declaration, just two people who had been through enough to know what mattered when they saw it. We didn't post anything about it. We didn't tell anyone for a while, not because we were hiding it, but because it felt good to have something real and untouched by all the noise. Meanwhile, my phone stayed silent. Still no word from my parents. Still nothing from Kevin. No birthdays acknowledged, no holidays mentioned, not even a passive-aggressive comment sent through a cousin. It was like we had all quietly agreed to disappear from each other's lives. I used to think I'd miss them. I don't. People asked me if I'd ever reconcile with them, if I'd ever forgive Kevin. The truth? I don't wake up thinking about forgiveness. I wake up knowing I'm no longer the person who used to beg to be included in his spotlight. And that feels better than forgiveness ever could.